Whoa, Dad, go, Dad.
That's right. Welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad. My name's Dave Momper. I'm your host. This is a fatherhood podcast for new dads and soon-to-be dads. I'm a new dad myself, and I'm asking every day, great dads, what does it take? What does it truly take to take on the ultimate role? All right, let's get to it. Welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad. I'm with Ben Seymour here. Ben, welcome to the podcast on fatherhood.
Thanks for having me.
So good to be with you, man.
Likewise.
Let's give our audience a little context. We've known each other since 2011. How did it come to be?
Well, I was brought in for a company called Postmodern company. And halfway through my interview, I think, or about that, this strapping young man came in, was introduced to me as the head of business development for that company. And he looks like a generous of heart and intellect guy. I like this guy. And so one thing led to another. We both were working at Postmodern, and that was a fast friendship.
No doubt about it. I remember walking into the conference room. David was maybe interviewing you. Quick intro and sat down, and then it was like, let's go get coffee because we were going to work together.
Right.
We were the business development initiative and the client services, client relationship duo, right? And we walked to Crema in the River North area of Denver, north of Denver. And truly, literally, I remember thinking like, oh man, I'm going to be friends with this guy for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, dude, for sure. It was like, oh, whoever this guy is, this guy's my vibe. So, and now you and your wife run Postmodern, own Postmodern, and you're immersed in the creative field of content creation. How's that going? What is that like? Tell the audience a little bit about the forte of Postmodern company.
So Postmodern company is we're really a content creation company at this point. That changes year over year in terms of what we are, but we continue to do the same thing, which is we work with brands and companies tell our stories through audio and video, and do it in kind of ever evolving ways because the market demands that. And it's business is good. We're lucky. We have a great company, great employees, great freelancers, great clients. And so we just kind of continue to extend that. The Postmodern is 32 years old 2 weeks ago. So
congrats.
Yeah, we keep running with the baton.
And you and I got to throw the 20-year party together.
Yes, we did.
And then you threw the 30-year party 2 years ago, I suspect. Right?
Yep.
Mad props, and props to David for starting off, our friend David Emmerich.
Absolutely.
Kicking it off. So Ben, I know we've got some history together. We've been camping with your oldest. We've had some good times. I know your wife's an amazing human in the business as well, Trista. And I loved how you replied to the prompt I sent you. Right. So let me just read Ben's reply when I set this up. My question was, what does it mean to be a legendary father? And for those listening, the theme of this podcast, Whoa Dad, Go Dad, is leadership, adventure, and raising legends. And I'll tell you what, I think of Ben as a legend and a legendary guy. But this is his reply to, what does it mean to be a legendary father? I don't want to be legendary. We are not doing this for glory. I just want to be a standard for my own kids when they become parents. And that means them knowing they are loved unconditionally. They will be challenged to be their best selves, and being happy is paramount to all other accomplishments.
I wrote that.
You wrote that. I don't want to be legendary. It's too bad, man. You're a legend to me. And I appreciate the humility there. What about, you're not doing this for glory? That's fair, but say a little bit more about those first two lines. I don't want to be legendary. We're not doing this for glory. Riddle on that with me.
Um, yeah, I think that uh, there's only three people that I care about, really primarily about how my scorecard as a father. Right? My two kids, my wife. That's it. Extension from that would perhaps be, my parents and in-laws and stuff like that. But the reality is like, you're only doing it for really at its core, you're only doing it for two people, you for one, right? And that's for the kids. So, um, do I want them to think I'm a legendary father? Man, I guess I really want them to. And I think this goes back to, and this is maybe tangential to the question a little bit, but I think this goes back to, I have been absolutely blessed. And I recognize this as I get older, and as I get older in my fatherhood, that I have an amazing father. I have an amazing father. I also have an amazing stepfather. My father is a wonderful person, a wonderful father, and therefore there's a standard that's already been set there. So it's incumbent upon me to just pay that forward, right? And I imagine you probably feel the same way. I met your dad. He's a pretty interesting dude, and raised two great boys. So similarly, you might feel the same way as you step into this, and that is that, yeah, I think, um, I'm not doing it for glory. I mean, it's great if tangentially, there are friends or people in my world who look at me and go, "Oh, he's a good father." But, just like anything else, same thing as in leadership, whether it's leadership as a father or leadership in business or whatever else, is like, you pull from other people, right? You pull from other leaders. So my dad, wonderful example. My cousin Zach, who he's a great father. I've learned so much from him, you know, just by watching him, observing him, but also asking him stuff too. What do you do about this? How do you do that? So, uh, I guess that's really kind of where it pulls from, is like, I don't want to be legendary. I want to just make sure that I exceed what the standard was presented to me, so that my kids, if they decide to be fathers, my boys will do the same thing. They just keep it moving, the evolution of good fatherhood, I guess, is what it is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I really appreciate that. And it's not about us any longer. And maybe, you're a pretty humble dude. So I never felt like you were, an egomaniac and somehow shifted to less than that now that you're a father. But, I can see what you're saying. It's not about the world and in the world's perception of you. It's just about setting your kids up for success. So tell me a little bit about your dad, and what would you say would be some of the, I don't know, give me three top attributes that you witnessed, noticed, and learned about from your father that you feel like you wanted to embody as you stepped into the fatherhood role 13 years ago. What would be the top three attributes?
Um, but number one is pretty much a selflessness. I mean, my dad was always like, my parents got divorced when I was 3. So I was most immediately, that was it. I was just single. I mean, only child, my parents. So my dad made me the number one priority for him. Um, and my mom did to a certain degree too, but my dad more so. I think I can see that now. And so that was just like, I'll be there. I'll drop whatever I'm doing. You are my number one priority. He still had to work and pay the bills and all that, of course, but he was always there on time. And you're my first priority. And so that sort of selflessness is number one attribute for me that I've tried to do the best that I can do with my kids too. That second part is sort of that unconditional love. Like, I mean, I fucked up. I did dumb shit. My dad was never, parented, he disciplined, he modeled, but he never threatened to love me any less as a result of those mistakes. So that's key, I think. And then I guess a third thing would be, I think just like I saw in him unspoken, perhaps like always ever evolving to learning to be a better parent. Not that rigidity of like, well, this is how it's going to be, and I'm not going to bend on that, to learn to go, oh, well, maybe I didn't have that right. Maybe, as my kid grows, I need to grow as a parent too. So I think it's those things, unconditional, the selflessness, the unconditional love, and support, and then understanding that there's no rules here. There's no hard, fast rules. You have to evolve, and you have to grow and learn as a parent as your kids grow.
That strikes me a little bit related to just as we were preparing, the thought that I think it was Scott Galloway had, where he wants to become in this year more of a dad than a father. So
Mhm.
he's evolving his style and recognizing that distinction, which I want to hear what you think the distinction is a bit, but just to
Yeah.
say, what's really calling, or what is the role calling on for me, to serve my kids well. And he put it in terms of being less of a father and more of a dad. So what does that mean to you, and how does it relate to your world?
Yeah, I think, and I hope I'm not that Scott Galloway is going to be listening, but hopefully Scott
Yeah,
Galloway is listening to this podcast. He's
he would
awesome.
catch it. Yeah,
Great. Yeah. Well, so I hope I'm not paraphrasing too much, but yeah, I think, I don't know. I, not to get too deep into it, but I'm sure if you like think about the etymology of like father has a certain connotation to it, right? Like father, Jesus, God, father, all the father parts of father. Then dad's just dad, right? Like it's a lot more loose and fluid and warm and inviting. So I think at the core of that, I think just the emotional connection to the differentiation of those two words, probably everybody can recognize who's listening to this. But the father part, more substantially, is to me is more that like the structure of being a good father, a good parent, rather, a parent. So that's more focusing on being a good role model and making sure that your kids you're putting the things in place for them to be their best selves from a more nuts and bolts standpoint, monitoring their development as young men, and
Mm.
making sure they're getting their schoolwork and enriching their lives with other things. That's all very important. It's extremely important, and it's something that I think I focus on. That's probably the biggest challenge, I think, is like, am I setting my kids up to do all of those things? Am I providing the structure to do all of that? And then also making sure that I'm pushing them to, here's the scaffolding I've built. Now get up there and go to the next thing and try this and go sideways and go diagonal, whatever. That's fatherhood to me. That's father. But the dad part is just, let's go play video games and just be and just talk about whatever. I don't need to. Here's a good example. When my 13-year-old is like, when I have a discussion with him now, because 13 is a pivotal age, seventh grade, middle school, there's a lot going on.
Mhm.
Body, social, friends, everything. There's all kinds of shit going on there. So when I have a lot of discussions with him now, it's more father than dad. I'm listening for, are you responding to your friends correctly? Are you okay? So the teacher said this, but what are you doing about it? So you got on this video game and you did that, you had that interaction, or you did your chores, but well, wait a minute, you didn't do it right. Rather than just the dad part, if you can partition that, is tell me what happened at school today, and I'm just going to listen to the antics of you and your friends, or the girl that you talk to, or you don't like that teacher, and so me going, well, how did you respond? Are you being good? What? It's more just like, oh yeah, she sounds terrible. Yeah, that sucks. Or tell me about, oh God, yeah, pizza was shitty for lunch today. Yeah, I remember when I was in middle school. That's the dad part that I don't think It's not like I don't do that. I think I
Sure.
do that. It's just the hearing Scott Galloway say that made me think I need to do more of that.
Yep.
I need to be more open to with both my kids. So
That's such a interesting thing to consider. Is like, yeah, I like how you noted the word father or fatherhood is like this mighty, big, grandiose thing. And it is the regimented version, or the regimented container of raising kids. It's like,
yeah,
the values live at the fatherhood level. And then the relationship with your kid lives at the dad level.
yeah, yeah. Well said.
And gosh, I mean, I'm definitely building a relationship with Leonidas, but he's not interacting with me yet, quite
Right.
yet at 3.5 months. He's smiling at me. And so I'm both, I'm in dad mode, I'm in father mode, I suppose, but there's not a need for distinction yet. But at 13, the coming of age, I just wonder, um, how how essential it must be for Brooks to have a dad, not just a father, but a dad.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the case probably. I mean, how long do you think, uh, how long does it go? It's definitely past 18 where, and maybe it's indefinite, but especially until you're, I don't know, 25, where can, is my dad my best friend or one of my best buddies? Uh, Someone who's going to hold me accountable too. That's fatherhood perhaps, but also someone who can, uh, I can have fun with and, dissect the craziness of the world with. And it's fun to think about, you
It
know, I'm,
is. Yeah. As you're talking about that, it's almost like, I would love to see that sort of not charted out, but I mean, you can almost think about it visually. It's like, so my 7-year-old, it's almost, if there's a percentage breakdown, probably 65% dad, 35% father. My 13-year-old is flipped. And I don't know that I don't know what the right ratio. I don't know if it should be 50-50, whatever. But I would say certainly as the kids move into their adolescence, they have a need for both. But you as a parent, I think probably you have a need to be more father, a little less dad, because there's just so much that is coming at them that you have to help, steer them more in that respect. And then I wonder if as you get into, as you said, like now by 25, kind of flips. They're on their own. They need more dad. But so I don't know. I think it's interesting. They need both. But I think the thing that gets lost, and I think, again, not to keep uh, holding, idolizing this Scott Galloway thing, but I've heard him speak about this too. And that is, and I was reading about this year in particular for our adolescent, for our 13-year-old too. And that is, they need, at this sort of age, this stage, they need you more than you realize. They want you more than you realize. They want you to be around and present as a dad more than you realize, even though they're very sucked into their peers at this age and the social structure. It's, they want you there. They want you to be a part of that. And that's kind of what I have to remember is I'm going to kind of even force my way in more as a dad, not as a father, just to be there. Like, you want to talk? You want to just chop it up, talk about whatever. I don't care. I just want to, I'll just listen. We'll laugh, talk about stuff. Um, so anyway, I don't know.
no, I like that. And the onus on a great parent to be present. Is like, what is the moment calling for? Is it calling for fatherhood vibes or dad vibes? And maybe there's times where both need to happen, but there's an interesting distinction there that I think could be fun to play with for me, um, and for the listeners out there. So think about this. My 13-year old Brooks, right? So might be a bit of a stretch to go way back to the early days, but when you, prior to having a kid, but you were going to be a dad, you knew you were going to be a dad at this point. What was, once you became a dad, the biggest difference between your perception of what it was going to involve and the reality?
I don't know if I had a perception of what it was going to involve. Um, I don't think there was any like, whoa, I didn't expect this or, um, necessarily. Maybe that was either total naivete or just the opposite. I had like kind of envisioned it for so long that it just was, yeah, okay, this is what I expect. Um, I mean, there's probably a physical part of that where it was like, I didn't know I was going to lose this much sleep. And I mean, I didn't drink coffee. I drink coffee occasionally. I didn't drink coffee daily, and I didn't drink black coffee until my first kid.
Is
I was
that
like, yeah, like, oh, there's an alertness level that is totally gone.
that's
It's,
great. The experience I've had is there's the concept of being a dad prior to being a dad. And I knew the magnitude of it,
Mhm.
but it wasn't tangible until it was tangible.
Yeah.
Right. And then, it kind of all came into perspective. I
Actually,
know- Yeah, go for it.
My initial reaction was yes. I was like, okay, I'm thinking about like sort of like a negative thing. Like, oh, I didn't realize it was going to be so hard, or it was going to be so sleepy or whatever. But the truth is, I didn't realize how much love I would have for both my kids. Um, that is something that I didn't calculate. And I think this is an interesting, I'll go on a little tangent here, but I'll just tell you this.
Yeah.
I remember my dad telling me, my dad was sort of an older father. And I remember my dad telling me that when at one point, he was holding my cousin. So my uncle's child,
Yeah.
dad wasn't even married at the time. And he was holding her. And I remember he told me he had this recognition. I've never loved us. I've never loved another little human being the way I love this girl, my niece. And then I remember him telling me, and then I had you, and it just dwarfed that. And I can remember holding my niece, my cousin Zach's daughter, same thing, just going, God, I love this kid. And I don't even know if I was married yet. And just thinking, I have so much love for this little human being. Then Brooks was born, my oldest. No question, no comparison about what that looks like. So I think that's one thing that was surprising, is to think about, oh my God. And then when we went to go have a second, I mean, part of the hesitancy of having a second is like, I don't know how much love I have to give, right? I've got a wife, got a kid, a dog, whatever. Like, do I have the time capacity? Sure. That's something to be considered of. Can I make enough money to do this? Do I have the time to raise a second kid? Do I have, without sacrificing all the other things I want to do, like all that stuff? But also, like, do I have that much love, or is this kid going to suffer? Or are both kids going to suffer because I just don't have it? The tank is only so big. No way. That happens, and it just swells up again. So that, I think, is probably something caught me by surprise.
The infinite well of a father's love. That's it might be a little too early in my podcast efforts to call that a common theme, but I've heard hints of this.
Mm.
A few of my conversations where you have, again, you can have a conceptual appreciation. Like, this is going to be really special. This little kid's going to be, I'm going to have a bond with this kid, but it's nothing like what it turns out to be. I mean, it is like it, but it's like, it's just beyond it. It's deeper. It's richer than you can imagine. And then you were struck by that at some point, and now you're reflecting on it, but have you run that up the flagpole to your dad and let him know? I just wonder if can you imagine how much love your dad had for you? Yes. But can you really appreciate it until you had a kid of your own? And did you let him know, like, oh my gosh, I know why you're so frustrated when I let you down in 8th grade because I did X, Y, Z, or because you loved me so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I just hearing these conversations with dads, I'm like, I got to go tell my parents just how much I appreciate them and what they.
Right? Yeah, I totally agree. I'm sure I have said that to him. And I know I've expressed to both parents in the plight of parenthood how much I appreciate them as parents, like, for sure.
Yeah.
And that grows. Well, it's interesting. It grows. And then you also, just like any other leader that you admire too, you see the holes and, okay, well, that wasn't great, but I'm going to improve on with what I do, whatever, So I see that as I get older too. There's that side of it too, but I definitely have told both my parents in the path of my own parenthood, like, I'm so appreciative of what you have done, and didn't realize that. And yes, I think I remember my dad or maybe my mom saying, you'll never understand how much I love you until you become a parent.
Mm.
And that's so true. It's so true. The other thing that I think is interesting that happens, and this isn't exactly answering your question, but I don't think thing that's interesting that happens is that, with that sort of the well of love that you have, the amount that tank of love is, I don't love my parents any less, but it is harder to be available to them, or it's harder to be a good son when you're also trying to be a good father.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing I'm trying to work on, is being a better son along with being a better father, because, you got 2 kids to chase around, and your parents are that love doesn't go, I don't think that love diminishes necessarily if you're lucky enough. I feel so lucky to have the parents I have and the father I have and the stepfather I have. No question about it. I have to imagine my dad, who's 78, he doesn't stop loving me any less. If anything, as he gets older, it's more, because he knows his time is drawing near. So it's like he's got all that love and energy to give, and he's got a son that's not as available. It's not as available because he's got his own sons to have to think about, and that's a tricky thing too.
No doubt about it.
Fatherhood, man, it's a fucking. There's a lot we could, a lot to talk about. Didn't realize.
Oh, no doubt about it. It's a trip so far. I mean, I'm 3.5 months in, so
Yeah.
tell me how you approached. I mean, maybe you didn't approach it, and you kind of let it unfold. But I suspect there was some intentionality with you and Trista, literally or quasi sit down and say, how do we want to raise our kids? What values do we want to instill? Like, what was that process, and what did you determine that uh, kind of set the course? You probably have adjusted too, I suspect. But was there a conversation that you had? What determinations were made early on about how you want to raise Brooks when it was just Brooks, I suppose?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever sat down and had that conversation of kind of like, what do we want to talk, what are the milestones and what are the road signs on all this? Um, I'm sure there are people that are a lot more conscientious of that, especially with like religion and maybe teaching their kids about money and, those kinds of things. I don't think we ever really had that. However, it comes up all the time, out of nowhere about, sort of this, that, the other thing, certain values. I think, a lot of that just, they pick that up by osmosis. You know, Racists, we try, we're not judgmental. So we try to instill those things without sitting down and going like, it doesn't matter what person's sexual orientation is or their color of their skin. We don't really have those kind of like sit down conversations. That's just implied. And if something comes up along the way, we can instill those kinds of values. Like I guess religion would be a good example. We're not religious people. We're not, we're pseudo spiritual people, but we've never said we aren't religious people and you can't pursue any sort of religion if that comes up. It's more like seek out what you want. We'll help you kind of find that kind of thing, help you kind of show you the path to whatever you want to pursue. But I don't think we really have those. We've never had that kind of sit down thing. However, it comes up along the way. Technology is a big part of that because that's a whole nother subchapter, which is the moving target, the ever evolving daily moving target of what are the rules with your kids' involvement with technology. That's the thing that we probably have to literally come to the table to twice a month, either Trista and I, or Trista and I and Brooks, or Trista and I and Wesley, and talk about, okay, guys, here's the rules now. Here's the rules now. Here's what we don't do. Here's what we do. That's a moving target.
Can we talk about that a bit? I mean, what's I can appreciate generally that technology is adding complexity to the world at large, and then how kids are interacting with each other and how they're learning about the world and how they're being influenced by it. But what are you and Trista, how are you approaching it? Sometimes you have to set a hard rule, I suspect. Sometimes you have to guide a bit, but what are those kind of conversations? What have they actually been about, and how have they sounded in recent times?
I mean, we just had one last night, a little bit this morning. It's, yeah, there is no black and white. There's no black and white there. And we have seen models of other people or things we've read. We're like, well, we'll adopt that. We'll adopt this. We like this. We like that. But the one thing we've tried to get Brooks, at least because he's 13, to understand, we've said this many times, is there is no playbook for this. Your mother and I didn't deal with this. Your grandparents didn't deal with this. Their grandparents didn't deal with this. No generation has had to figure this out in real time the way we have to, the way, parents like us have to, because it's changing every day. So bear with us. Sorry that we've changed our mind on this again, that you only get X amount of time to watch YouTube a day or be on your phone a day. But the reality is that, we aren't even aware as parents in our mid 40s of how insidious these other things can be. So we have to, in some ways, just say hard stop. You don't get to do this for this amount of time, because your 13-year-old brain cannot compute this stuff. Even a 40-year-old brain cannot compute what's going on here, right? For these things. So please bear with us. I know it sucks. I know maybe this friend over here gets to do all this stuff, but I can also point you to another friend over here who doesn't get to do any of what we're allowed to do. So that's kind of the running game. I think, I mean, and then to like just get into brass tacks, it's like he has no social media accounts. He doesn't, that just won't happen for a while here. He does have a phone. We really can find screen time on YouTube, anything that's an already calculated programs, Netflix, Disney, all that stuff. That's more quantifiable. Get half an hour on those channels, go for it. But this other stuff, we have to be more limiting on that. And that's true of Wesley too. I mean, shit, man, he's 7. He has the attention span of a gnat, right? Like anything that pops up. It's like, watch this, click that, watch that. And he doesn't, and he can't be as discerning as his older brother. He doesn't know what's garbage and what isn't. So that's another thing where we have to regulate that. And so I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but it's a full-time job, man. It is a full-time job to try to stay on top of how much screen time they're getting, where they're getting that in, what are they watching, what are they playing, what do those interactions look like? And I mean, you know me well enough. I think I'm not an IT specialist. I can't be at home and Brooks has he has like a gaming PC that he's built, which is pretty awesome. The whole process of doing that, figuring it out on his own with a little bit of help to find the parts and understand software and order them all. Awesome. So on the one side, YouTube University has been fantastic for that. He's learned a ton, nothing of which I've taught him, right? The flip side is that's all a means to an end. What's the end? Him having this super powerful PC that allows him to play more video games, fairly violent, with a lot of opportunity for all kinds of social interaction with the players on there and stuff like that. So it's like, well, that is great. It's great that you did all that. Saved the money, did the chores to make the money, raked leaves, shoveled snow. Awesome. Now you get on that thing, you're like, well, this sucks. I don't. So we've had, in that instance, we've had to tell them along the way, this is wonderful. We're encouraging you to do this. The process by which you're doing this, what you're learning, awesome. You won't be playing more video games, just so you know. You're not going to get more time on this as a result of all the hard work you put into building this thing. And have the same amount of time. And that's fine. That's worked out. But I mean, he had like a technical question last night about something like, I don't know this video game. I don't know how to problem solve what's going on with this computer right now. I don't work with Windows and PCs and stuff. So,
Fascinating.
yeah, sorry. It's just been case and
No apology necessary. It's a great little example of the resourcefulness and the industriousness of little kiddos. And but yet you're still giving them parameters. What I was hearing is you're giving them guidelines, parameters. You're rooting them on, but you're making sure there's some degree of buffer and some guidance in there. There was a word that really caught my attention, even beyond this this particular case study, but discernment. Teaching them discernment. I mean, how do you do that? How have you done that? And discerning between, right and wrong, good and bad. I suspect it's not. It's a degree of telling, but it's also the degree of questioning. Or how have you navigated empowering Brooks with some prudent discernment over the years?
What we have done since they were little kids, both of them, that I didn't really think about, but someone said to me, that's good that you're doing that, is the idea of giving them the choice. You can do this, you can do that. They both have an outcome. You decide. I will tell you that if you do this, this is probably what's going to happen. And if you do this, this is probably what's going to happen. but you have to make a decision. And I think that along the way, hopefully they have made the right choice, what we've steered them towards, but also they've figured out cause and effect and trial and error in those decisions. And that was everything that goes back to when they were real little, well, you can have peanut butter on toast, or you can have whatever. It's up to you. And then you'll decide. But now we don't always give them a choice, right? Like you can have birthday cake for dinner, or you can have a cheeseburger. Like it's not like that. But I think when you give kids choices, even from an early age, and and especially when you kind of know what the two outcomes might be, that's where they learn to discern certain things. It gets harder as they get older because there's more choices and more things. But that's one good thing I think that helps kind of steer them towards, you know, decision making, good, bad, or indifferent.
No, I like that because
Mhm.
initially you're not teaching them right versus wrong. You're just teaching them the agency of choosing between two things or three things or maybe 20 things. And then within that, eventually you're expanding to, right and wrong, good and bad, valuable, or say productive versus wasteful, or efficient uh, versus inefficient, I suppose. But had you probably almost had to go with the flow a little bit because you can't. I assume here. Let me frame this up. What is it like as a father to let your kids make a choice and then watch them make the wrong choice, quote unquote? How do you
Hard.
how do you handle that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's hard when you're like, okay, but I don't know. I mean, depending on the severity of what it is, obviously either do or don't do that, or you're aware of what the outcome is and you just got to deal with it. Like that in those instances, it might be your mistake. Like, maybe you shouldn't have given them a choice on that one,
That
But
was a choice it was a choice for you to give them a choice.
it's like, fuck. Um, but I think I honestly take comfort in it when I'm like, well, now you learn, now you know. I think more times than not, that works out in your favor as a parent, where it's like, well, if now I gave you $5 and I told you, and you asked me, uh, you know, should I buy 2 scoops of ice cream or should I buy 4 Snickers bars? And I would say, I'd buy 4 Snickers bars. You can buy the 2 scoops of ice cream. It's up to you, right? That's going to be short lived and you only get two. And then, whatever. So I don't know. I think, like I said, more often than not, I think that's a win for you, no
Yeah.
matter what decision they make.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
I wonder what I would pick. I think I like the 4 Snickers bars because, you could enjoy them longer. Was that your rationale when you kinda walked them through it, or did you
I think so. I mean, that could be a whole other. I mean, shit, man. If you go sell two of them for $2 each, there's all
Yeah,
kinds
oh,
of things
interesting.
come out of that little Rorschach test right there.
Right. Oh, that's fun to play with. Yeah, like well, it depends on what's your ultimate goal? Personal
Totally.
enjoyment?
Yeah. I mean,
Interesting.
if it's a hot day, go with the 2 scoops of ice cream. Those Snickers
Yeah.
aren't going to last very long.
Right, and did we just get done with, I don't know, what sports does he play? Soccer? Any
Brooks plays ultimate frisbee. Wesley plays everything. Yeah.
ultimate frisbee, my man Brooks. So, it's
Yeah.
like, did you just win a big game and you wanna just celebrate with
Yeah.
just gorging yourself on ice cream, or are you building your Snickers empire, your candy your candy business?
Yep.
I feel like that's maybe not a segue per se, but it prompts me to think a little bit about teaching them these critical life skills early on, or not early on, just over the course of their upbringing, and with leadership as a key topic that's in my profession, and then as a part of this podcast endeavor is what are what do you see in Brooks as a leader in the making, right? And not that I think every person in the US should be a great leader. Everyone around the world should be a great leader. A leader doesn't have to be a legend. They don't have to be the icon. Everyone just needs to be a capable leader. So it's an all-encompassing word, and then we get to interpret what that really means and stands for. So would you say early on you've thought, well, I want to make sure that when it comes to leadership, Brooks knows A or B or C. Are there certain aspects of leadership that you're instilling in him, either consciously or if you think back on it, what he's learned about leadership over the first 13 years of his life?
Question. Um, One, we have talked about this specifically, like, hey, you are a leader. You may not recognize it, right,
Mm,
in certain instances, but you absolutely are. So we've talked a little bit about that, which is not really about like leading, right? Like you have to, you have to represent certain things, and it's more like um, just be, you have to move with conviction. Like you know what's right, you know what's wrong. And you make the choice, in those instances, even though it may be not what your friends are doing, not what the class is doing, do what you believe is right and stick to that because that's leading. I think most people fall into the trap of following. Even good leaders fall in the trap of following when that feels, for whatever reason, in that instance, that's the comfortable thing to do. And so we've talked to him about that both when he's gotten in trouble because he's leading by being a goofball in class or doing something that other people are watching and following, that you've got that audience, you've got the eyeballs, you've got people's attention. So what are you going to do with it? Because what you're getting in trouble for, whatever reason this was brought up for, this was brought up because people were paying attention to you. And so you have a responsibility there to do what you know is right. And that has happened when he has been recognized for doing something positive in a leadership way, role or something. We've said that to him too. It's like, dude, look at this is what it's all about. People see in you what we see in you, but but we're at home. It's just the two, just me and your mom. You've got teachers and dozens of kids that see that. So remember that and you know, act with conviction in what you know is right. That's really the biggest thing, I think. Yeah.
yeah. What's it like? I didn't know you when you were 13, but I'm going to extrapolate and imagine, right? And I do know what I was like when I was 13. What's it like to see your kid kind of get caught up in the, the the playfulness and, it's almost to see him get in trouble for things perhaps you got in trouble for that were fairly innocent, but they warrant some, you got to address them and, but I'm just sensing part of me once Leonidas is of that age where almost gonna have to bite my tongue and be like, I did that too. I mean, I get that, but you can't do it that way, right? Or that's not good in the long run, or just almost laughing, finding humor in it, or seeing it as like, God, I can't believe he did that. I'm not surprised. That's what every kid does. That's what I did. But you still have to reprimand and guide and steward. How's that tussle for you?
It gets hard. I mean, that is again, I mean, I think we're hitting on something here. I think that's balance between father, dad, father, balance. Like which percentage of it is there? Um, because I have the benefit because I was such a I mean, Brooks is only 13 and Wesley's only 7, but I was such a much more of a fuck up. So when he gets in trouble for little things, I definitely dad father it a little bit, right? But I'm always like, God, it's not like you're like me,
Mm.
but you're not like me because that would be and now Wesley's only 7, so who knows what's coming. But yeah, I think it's always that kind of like, you definitely have to find that balance. And that's where, again, the father dad thing where I think particularly in the last year, I've been more focused on the father part of it, which is like, you know, I understand where you're at and middle school's hard and you're in your adolescence and you really shouldn't be doing that. You really, but also you have to step back and be like, but I get it, man. I get why you did that. I did that too. And I think what I'm wrestling with right now, particularly with Brooks, is that I'm I feel like I'm a little heavy handed in watching what he's doing, seeing what he's doing, and not being like, yeah, but dude, you were 13 too, and it's a mess. And, you know, I'll give you an example, and you can see if you can extrapolate, propel yourself 10 years from now. Well, no, sorry, 13 years from now. And here Leo, Leonid's with his buddies, and maybe you're in the living room and they're in his bedroom, and you can hear him talk with his friends, and they're dropping F bombs, and they're maybe saying, I don't know, calling some dude a bitch or something. And my instinct is, right, knock on the door. Hey guys, come on. You don't need to talk like that. It's not appropriate. But now, step back. Dave Mumper at 13 or 14, Ben Seymour at 13 or 14. Absolutely saying that shit. Absolutely saying with my friends. Definitely part of your development process. And I don't know, did my dad or my mom step in and be, oh, it's not okay to do that? He's in the confines of his own bedroom with the door closed, right? It's a tough deal. Or is it? It's like, no, just let him go. Let him do that stuff. Now, if he says that in public to a teacher or a store clerk or his mother, totally different story. That's kind of where I'm at in this just small examples. Like, gotta let them be who they are, particularly with their friends, assuming that it's nothing more nefarious than kind of the example I just set. You
Sure.
know?
Yeah. If he was plotting a nefarious, you know, something just like, we're going to go take him down, like, of course you hear that, you're jumping in.
Yeah.
But if they're just, yeah, they're almost sorting out who they are and learning, judging the world, which, can go the wrong way for sure. But also, you're assessing people and dynamics. And I feel like it's part of the process to a degree. But the term helicopter parent came to mind. Like, you could pounce on that. And over the years, it might be well intended, but eventually that's going to be exhausting for you. You might not even know it as a parent, but it's going to be exhausting. And then for the kiddo, they're going to be like, I can't do anything without
Yeah.
my parents harping on me.
Yeah. And I think, and I recognize this in myself. Again, this is something like we were saying earlier. Like, this is it's a never evolving thing to be a good parent, I think. And I recognize this in myself is that there's two things I think that happen when you're, sort of helicoptering, and that's all relative. It's a gradient there. But one is they feel like they can't make a move without you on them. So they're never really going to be able to make a lot of decisions for themselves if they know that you're back there. And I don't think that's a good thing. The other thing is I think it creates a sense of dependence that you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I want them to go make mistakes. I want them to, I don't want them to drop the F bomb to a teacher, but I do want them to figure out that, this isn't, I'm not going to be there behind you to make sure that you're doing the right thing and you're saying the right thing to the right people. So I think there's a dependency there too, that, that can be a little, you got to be careful of that. Not just the overseeing for the discipline and, guidance side, but the other side is if they think you're there all the time, then they're not going to push themselves to do other shit.
Yeah.
You know?
No doubt
So
about it. And you do, yeah, you want them to have agency, autonomy, and conviction that's not dependent on you. That's for sure. What tell me a little bit more about this in the spirit of leadership. You're teaching him how to make decisions and own them, how to have conviction and not necessarily be a follower, but make up his own mind and stand for something. What other aspects of leadership are you instilling in him? And I doubt you're sitting him down in a clinical way and being like, let me give you the definition of leadership. It's these things, and here's how you become a leader. So you're not necessarily saying to Brooks, although you did say you are a leader, Brooks, but are there other key themes that early on you feel are foundational that you've instilled in Brooks, either clinically or just explicitly, like taught him a concept, or kind of undercover themes that you've woven into his upbringing?
I think we talk a lot now, and we have before, and that is sort of like healthy body, healthy mind. That's one thing. And that's more just like lifestyle, but I think that does play a role in
Mm.
leadership.
Yeah.
Um,
How
and
does that go?
it's not easy with 13-year-olds who, I mean, they're hardwired for junk food and crap and don't
Yeah.
understand the ramifications of, it, that has an adverse effect when you want to go play ultimate and you've been sitting around eating garbage, but we've also tried to instill with them the idea to like, with the bull, Wesley's actually better at it, but which is the idea that like what you put in comes up and out a year too.
Oh,
So if you're eating a lot of crap, and then you're frustrated, you're angry, or or you're not sleeping well, it's because a lot of that's going into your body. It's got to go somewhere, and unfortunately, has a negative effect. He kind of gets that. He's getting pretty good at coming around to that for the most part. But I think there's another thing probably foundationally plays off what we were talking about earlier with them, and we've really been doing this with Wesley too, and that is that there is a ripple effect to the energy that the energy that you put out to the world will come back to you in one way or another. And so when you're on the soccer field or when you're in the classroom or whatever that is, you again, yes, because you're perhaps setting an example, but also you need to understand that when you give whatever you give out comes back to you. So just be aware of that with your relationships with other kids and teachers and everything else, that you need to set an example, but you also have to understand that just on an individual level, that will come back your way. Be a good person, be a good citizen, be a good friend, be a good student, and kind of live that every day. I tell Wesley this every day, and I told Brooks this every day when I dropped him off in grade school, which was be kind, be brave, be smart, be strong. Every day. We say it every day. Well, we just repeat that back to each other, and Brooks was the same way. But I like to think it's getting in there. It's hopefully in an insidious way. It's worked its way into their brains because that is exactly what they need to do every day. Not necessarily in that order, but you need to exemplify that every day. Be kind, brave, be smart, be strong. If you do those four things, all those secondary, tertiary things will come around to that too. Hopefully. I mean, they still get in trouble. They're they're certainly not smart every day, but I think that gets back to that brave thing too. It's like, don't, do act on your conviction. That's being brave because you might be bucking what everybody else is doing. But if you're true to yourself on that that will always come back to you in a good way.
especially when you combine it with the first one, be kind. So,
Exactly.
or respectful, perhaps. But
Yeah.
I love that you have a mantra that you've literally spoken out loud repeatedly over and over. Do you feel like Brooks, if I were to say, Brooks, what are the four key things every day you got to do the fourth, he would know it. He would be able to say, oh, be
Yeah.
kind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They get real dumb around 13 though. As my as my stepdad says, there's not enough blood to run both heads.
Oh, that's funny.
So so
Yeah.
yes, I think if you said to him, what are the four things your dad has always instilled in you, he would say that probably.
And you just brought up another topic for perhaps a follow-up podcast, but it is that age where you you are full of 13-year-old hormones. And yeah, that's interesting. How is that? How are you navigating that aspect? Like teaching him to be a, I don't know, a good dude, and aware of his body. And I mean, has it come to the point where you have to talk about how the world works on that level, or?
Not yet really.
Yeah.
He's God love her. Trista gets these more than I do. He asks her the questions that, the ones that you just are cringeworthy. You're like, oh God, I don't answer that one.
Yeah.
She's fielded almost all of them. So I can't say, but we haven't had he's not quite at the age where we have to sit down and go, okay, here's what responsibility means with respect to that. We do, getting back to your earlier questions about like, what about leadership? One of the things we have always talked about with him is like being respectful of women, being respectful for anybody, no matter what their sexual orientation is or how they identify their gender or whatever. Just be respectful of that and understand your place in all of it. We do talk about those kinds of things. But yeah, no, fortunately, we haven't had to have the whole, you know, this is what it's going to be like when you're with a girl or any of that stuff yet. Um, but it's this, okay, this is something I just didn't know, kind of going back to the whole gotcha thing. I did not realize it was going to be like this in terms of how less functional his brain is on a I don't even know, just like reasoning level right now. It's just like there's stuff where you're just like, what? How do you mean? I'll give you an example. We have tacos probably. Did I tell you this already? I don't
No.
Oh, we have tacos for dinner. I don't know, every 2 weeks at least. We probably have tacos. This is about 3 months ago. I mean, the kids have thousands of tacos in his life. I swear. Between whatever at home. So they're not like tacos. He's got his tortilla. He's got like sour cream on the tortilla, and he looks at and all the shit's on the table, and he looks at Tristan and he goes, "Mom, now what do I do?" And we both looked at each other like, here's a 7-year-old brother right next to him just getting down on a taco that he made. Like, what do you mean? He's like, well, no, what do I do? Uh, put the shit on your tortilla like we always do? What do you mean? Those kinds of conversations, those kinds of things, they pop up about every month, 3 weeks now, where we're just like, dude, what are you, huh? Are you really asking this question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Never saw that coming.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wonder what explains that. His mind's all over the place. And
It's chemical. It's just hormonal.
yeah, I was gonna say his mental capacity is being spent in other places. And so let's think about and those listening will appreciate this because I think a lot of new dads will find this podcast helpful. That's my intention. But I'm a brand new dad, right? 3.5 months in. I mentally prepared for it. It was just a giant concept during pregnancy. It was for sure real in the sense that I saw my wife pregnant, but it was like, it was still conceptual more than it was tangible. And now it's front and center. So I suppose in my first couple years, the early stages of fatherhood, of dadhood, what would you, and I'm asking for your advice. I know you're a humble guy and you're like, I don't want to tell people, but what kind of advice do you have for me to either make the most of it or to be prepared or to, to be a good steward in the early years? What kind of guidance would you give me knowing that I'm, he's 3.5 months old right now and I'm a 3.5-month-old father.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
well, what do you, what's mine there?
Yeah, this is actually, I'll just riff off right here. I would say one thing is, and this is key, right? The period you're in now is sometimes is one of the most difficult periods. With every progression of your kid, there are good and bad. They get more responsible, but then there's this. They start to walk. Wonderful. But now you gotta protect everything, right? That's a small example. But I think this period can be the hardest period because you're both, particularly your wife, is under physical strain, like she'll never be under again. It's just taxing for her. Odds are you're both not sleeping very well. So you got going that. You don't have any time for each other because this kid's sucking the life out of the two of you. But it is crucial at every step along the way that you find small moments, big moments to make sure that your unity, the two of you, is aligned. Because as a kid whose parents were divorced, I never knew my parents to be together. And I can say just from my own experience with our kids, that is a princess and a pea effect, where if something's not right there, something's not jiving and you have no time for each other as it is, that shit's just gonna magnify. So first and foremost, like essentially like, it's like that age, that same thing, like, you need to put the mask on you and put it on your kid. You guys have to be breathing clean air and feeling healthy together because it will affect them in ways you probably don't even know. That's one thing. Two is, I would say, and this is just like leadership, like find the people, which you're doing, I think, find the people that are going to help you learn and both from what they are doing or aren't doing, to be the best father that you can. Surround yourself with those kinds of people or, outside resources, because that's crucial. That's really crucial to have the right models. I know there's a ton of people. I mean, this is a whole societal thing where you've got whole pockets of society and certain subcultures. They just don't have that. They don't have those, as we know, there's no the father mother models, and that has a huge ripple effect, right? So that's a that's a big thing too. Um, Make sure you are taking care of yourself physically. That's that's a big deal too, and that gets lost, I think. When you're a new dad and you think I'm sleeping well, you got to do this, and push up, sit up, stretching, like do it. Whatever you got to do, meditate, find the time for you, because that will all come back on your kid if you're frustrated. Your frontal lobes, everything's going to your frontal lobes, and you're getting pissed off. Um, I mean, I'm sure if you haven't been there yet, I remember just like, going in the other room and fucking punching and screaming into a pillow because I was just, oh my God, this kid's driving me crazy.
Mm.
You gotta make sure you take care of yourself with that stuff. So I was gonna say those things, and then I think this is true too in this stage, but infinitum, if that's a word, it's
Infinitum. That's
infinity
yes.
and beyond is that when they're these little babies like this, there's no personality, there's no sparkle, they're just shit and sleep. It's hard to find an emotional connection to that necessarily. And then they turn a corner and they giggle and they do that. And now that's a survival mechanism. Now you start to develop that bond and that love for them. So I think this is crucial at this moment, is to know that that's coming.
Mm.
You will find that all of a sudden your heart will start to melt because if they did something and they smiled at you or they picked up something or they said your name for the first time. It's like, oh my God, that's amazing. That really is amazing. It's life changing in those little moments. But I've had this discussion with even dads who have kids who are 17 and they're struggling with, and that is, you may not like your kid, but you got to love them. You have to love them and they have to know that you love them. They have to know that you love them unconditionally. And unconditionally can be a difficult thing for some people, I think. Wow, he's a real fuck up. Or God forbid your kid's a heroin addict and they just stole your car to go get drug, whatever that is. Their life throws us curveballs and that may happen, but you have to love them unconditionally because that's what it's all about. I think you have to remember that probably I don't have a kid who's in his 20s. You have to remember that when they're in their 20s, and you have to do it when they're 3.5 months old. Is just, you have to love them unconditionally. And like I said, they have to know it. Because if they don't know it, they're always going to be consciously or subconsciously, they're going to be yearning for that. They're going to be asking themselves that. They're going to be looking to you for different things to see if that's what's there. Where's my dad at on this? So those are some things I would say at this stage for sure.
Yeah, foundational. Without unconditional love, everything else unravels. I can see it. It's the core ingredient.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like I said, I don't have this, which is great. But again, my kids are young. You might not like them. You might not like them. You might not like their personality. You might not like the choices that they're making. I've seen it. You've probably seen it too.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've had discussions with your parents where you're like, they don't like what I'm saying. They don't like where I'm going. They don't approve with the decisions I'm making in my life.
Yep.
You kind of don't have any control over that. You don't have a whole lot of control of the personality, but you do have control of the fact that they need to know you love them no matter what.
Right. No, I can imagine there were times probably in high school where my parents did not like me because I was a hellion, not 24/7, but certain days or whatever you'd say. And, uh, they had to tap into that unconditional love just so that they could steward me through those moments.
Yeah, me too.
You touched on it, like right now, the the affection and love I have for Leonidas is notable. It's there. I could feel it. He is interacting with me and
Mhm.
us. Like in the morning, he'll wake up and he's like rubbing his eyes. It's like, it's funny. It looks like a cartoon. He's like, "Mer, mer, mer,"
Yeah.
you know, and it's like his tiny little hands in his eyes. It's like, ah. And then he'll see us and smile. And you're like, oh my God, that's fantastic. But I'm yearning for when he can exchange more, uh, in with greater depth, like in information, just communicate for sure, or hug me, or,
Mhm.
I'm like, I can't wait for that. And I don't want to rush it, but I do find myself going, man, I love this kid a lot right now. And I can't even imagine what it's going to be like when I can be like, hey, we're going for a drive in the mountains. Get your backpack ready.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that's going to be fantastic. And that kind of has me wondering about, I know you guys get up to Montana quite a bit.
Yeah.
What's their sense of adventure these days? How, you know, especially Brooks being 13, does he get the magnitude of wandering or the value of wandering and looking and exploring and all that?
No, Mike, I wrestle with this too. This is one of my New Year's goals is that my kids are such city kids now. I mean, not now. They're just city kids. We live in, I mean, we live in the heart of Denver. We have our people, we have our community. It's all very, and it's the nature of Tristan and I as well. I shouldn't put it all on the fact on our surroundings. It's nature and nurture. But, no, what's interesting is it's more like, I mean, Wesley's still that age where he just likes to do anything. He likes to do all kinds of stuff, which is awesome. Brooks is at the age where he's actually, because he's such a city kid, he loves the city. Like when we go downtown, it's just, I love it. I love it. His adventure is like, let's just go wander around and let's go, let's go check out graffiti. Let's go do that. I mean, we still love to snowboard and loves to jump in lakes and play in rivers and stuff, but it's not so much like, the mountains are calling me and I must go. Um,
But
which
adventure
is an
could show
interesting
up in a
thing.
bunch of different capacities. So it doesn't mean he
Yeah.
has to be in the the deep, dark elk woods of Montana necessarily. He does like to explore, right? He's like
Yeah.
finding his curiosities and his intrigue and all that.
Yeah. And that's what's interesting to see is like, where is his, not just intellectual pursuit? What is he interested in? Is like building his own computer and all that stuff. Where is his pursuit for adventure and wandering and curiosity in the outside of this, in the world?
Yes.
And yeah, he's definitely a kid that gravitates more towards, let's go see this part of the city. Let's go do that. But that is something that is in my mind that I want to work on more with these kids is to get them out in the woods and make it more raw. And, you know, what's really interesting, I think, is with what you think your kids are going to gravitate towards, what you think they're going to, or the opposite. What are they going to be repel from? And to see that be wrong,
Right.
you're pleasantly surprised by the fact that you were wrong. Oh, that's great. Took them backpacking last summer, and it was just like, they're kids too, so they're just like, yeah, it's great. I don't
Yeah.
care that I'm plugged into something. Do this and do that, and that's always fun to see. But yeah, I mean, with Leo, I can see that, dude. With Leo, you know, you're gonna be a great dad. You already are a great dad, I'm sure. And that attachment to him that, will be there when he wakes up in the morning, he doesn't rub his eyes. When he wakes up in his morning and he smiles and he grabs your beard or whatever, he's like, "What?" Like, oh man. I think you're coming up on the real sweet spot. And and it wanes the other way because I'm fully conscious of this. When I lie in bed with Wesley after we've read a book, and I'm lying there with him and he wants to hold my hand and he wants me right there with him. And he's the sweetest damn thing in the world. And I have said this to myself many times, like, this is the best place in the world, right here, right now, in my home, lying with my son who wants to be here with me and is just the sweetest goddamn thing in the world. It's the best. You couldn't put me in Ibiza. You couldn't put me in France, Paris. You couldn't put me anywhere. This is it right here. This is amazing. And on the flip side, I got a 13-year-old who's like we're saying that thing. He wants me there, right? He wants that there. But that opportunity to sort of like cuddle and just be with him, it's limited. That window is closing by the day. And that is a hard pill to swallow. Well,
So for the new dads, it's like cherish every moment, which is such
yeah.
it's a cliche thing to say. It's, but it's real, man. It's fleeting, right? Even in 3.5 months with Leonidas, it's like, I can't believe how big he is already and how much has changed. And every day goes by and it's gone. And you're like, well, where did the day go? Where did the weeks go?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the real deal. All right, Ben Seymour, one final question for you.
Yeah,
To
buddy.
wrap this up.
Yeah.
Think about being, uh, you've moved on from this life. What do you want to be known for? Imagine your kids are 65. Maybe you're still alive at that point. Let's give you some credit. But what do you want to be known for when your kids are 65? Maybe they have some kids of their own. They've lived a rich life and they're thinking back on your role as a father. How do they describe you?
I mean, honestly, it seems really trite, but like, I just hope they just think of me as sort of like, who's such a great father. He was always there for us and he loved us no matter what. I think I just want them to be able to say, he was a great dad and have little, have very few wishes of things I didn't do. Yeah.
I can hear Brooks and Wesley saying, Dad set the standard. He was a great dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope I can live up to the standard my father set for me.
Mhm.
And, I like that notion. Create a standard, set the bar, and then equip them to surpass it. So,
Yep.
all right, Birdie Bird, thank you so much for
Burday.
your time.
Yeah, man, it's
Bro
fun.
Dad podcast, and so fun to talk to you about it. We'll probably have to get into the woods this summer with your kiddos.
I'd
Sounds
love
like
that.
we're due for something like that.
Yeah, I would love to do that, especially with you. And I know Brooks would jump in. He'd love it.
All right, that's a wrap. We'll see you next time.
All right, buddy.
There you have it. That's been another episode of Whoa Dad, Go Dad. If you like what you're hearing, hit the like button, subscribe to the podcast so you get the future ones, and please spread the word and post this episode to your social networks. That's powerful. Perhaps the best thing you can do is share this directly with a new dad or a soon-to-be dad that you know personally. Let them know you're rooting them on. And indeed, drop a comment and be really a part of this dialogue on fatherhood with me. Let me know in the comments a question you want me to ask other dads, or just some feedback. How does this sound to you? What's helpful? What stands out about these conversations? I would appreciate that intel as I grow Whoa Dad, Go Dad. I've got many more episodes to come, and I'm so glad you're here. Looking forward to catching you on the next one.
Whoa, Dad, go Dad, here we go now. Oh yeah, the ultimate roll now. Oh yeah, here we go now. Whoa.